Hello and welcome to the Nope Coach podcast. I'm your host, Suzanne. This is episode 327, Overcome Self-Doubt with Chantal Dempsey. So I'm really excited to have Chantel on the show because self-doubt is something I've spoken about on a few other episodes. It's also going to be coming up in a few more episodes because I think it's one of our biggest things that holds us back. Like, what if it doesn't work? What if I fail? What if I look stupid? What if? And we don't often pause to look at the other side of that, like, what if it works? And this show is a perfect example of self-doubt because I had a podcast before launching this one. And I was like, I don't know if a daily show will work. I don't know if people will like it. And I literally recorded 3 episodes, 8 p.m. at night, hit publish on a tear, and woke up the next morning. I was like, this is a dumb idea. I should stop the show. And people were like, no, this is amazing. So sometimes if you silence that voice, or I don't like the term soldier on or push through, but, let it be there, but don't let it stop you. But I'm really keen to hear what you have to say about this topic, Chantel. So I will pass it over to you.
Yes, thank you, Suzanne. And this is a great topic because we all experience it, right? Absolutely, every single one of us. I have never met anybody that hasn't, at least at some point, had self-doubt, and even have it quite regularly. And the thing is, it is all a matter of perspective. So you can either have a program that sends that self-doubt all the time, or you can have a program that actually silences it, like you said, or and again, maybe silence, you picked up on the fact that maybe some terms are more awkward to use than others, because that self-doubt actually comes from a part of us, and that part of us has got a purpose. It is there for, usually, to keep us safe. And I often give this example to my clients where that started this program of self-doubt, anxiety, maybe kind of adverse, keeping you adverse to risk taking, is to keep you safe. Maybe it started when you were a kid and you took a risk and you tried something and then you fell on your face, and then you felt really bad as a result. So then that kind of part of you, your subconscious part, is trying to keep you from having that experience again. So it's kind of throwing in the self-doubt to stop you from doing this again, taking a risk again. And of course, as adults, then we need to find a way to respond to this more in a way that's more helpful and that brings us forward rather than keep us stuck.
I love that. And taking it back to the point you said about keeping us safe, because there are times when legitimately something we consider doing is not safe. But there are times when, like, the worst that could happen is embarrassment, but that feels really unsafe. But in the times of lockdown, a story that came to mind when you were talking is Australia had very strict lockdown, particularly where I live.
Yeah.
And I had 2 very young children who were very bored. And they had this box and they were like, do you reckon we could, like, toboggan it down the staircase? And I was like, well, you could. I'm not entirely sure how safe this would be, but, and then it was so funny. My son said to my daughters, Anthony, you go first. And I just love that. Sometimes it's kind of like, and I think sometimes we do invite or want to see someone else go first, but depending on the situation, we might not get the exact same result that they did. There's, as I said, physical safety with your body, but there's also, like, in business, if you're putting something out there, if you're putting an offer out there and you've seen someone do it and they've had great success, and then you're like, okay, so I'm going to do it, but it's not aligned with your flow or your makeup, or it doesn't feel natural to you. Like, for me, I'm thinking in-person business events. Some people have great success with that. And I'm like, oh, Suzanne, you should go in person. I'm like, I'd rather die. I'm socially awkward. I'm an introvert. Like, people they can't tell. It's like, because online, it's just me and my computer, or me and one person. So technically I'm networking with lots because people listen and write emails, but I don't need to be, in person, switched on. Like, people don't even know if I'm wearing pants. So, but, finding a way that works for you. But as I said, circling back to your point about safety, there may have been experiences when we were younger that things, this toboggan staircase thing might not have turned out so well, or you might have read your poem to the class and had people laugh at you, and then you've held on to that until you're an adult.
Yes, absolutely. And the thing is, it's hard sometimes to distinguish, and you're talking about physical safety. It is hard to distinguish between what actually, because we have to learn to listen to our gut as well. And it's so, we've got all these things that we need to do, and we want to, but it's that balance between getting out of your comfort zone to get you where you want to be, and keeping yourself safe. And I think, you know, the answer, if you like, in my books is to set the goal first. So what is it that you want to achieve? What is it that you want? So once you visualize what you want, what your goal is. So let's say, for example, you want to set up a business, or you want to change jobs, or you want to go dating, or whatever it is that your goal is, you are going to have to get out of your comfort zone to get to it, because otherwise you're going to be stuck. You're not going to meet somebody if you stay at home all the time. You're going to have to get out of your comfort zone and go dating. If you want to set up a business, you're going to have to maybe, you know, go on networking, or do go on social media, do things that you that don't feel comfortable. But I think you always have to keep sight of the goal. And this is your answer. This is what pulls you more. What's the, you know, the proportionality between what you want to achieve and how unsafe it feels, or how uncomfortable it feels.
I love that.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense, because it sounds so simple, but it's so often overlooked. Like, what is the goal? And I love the examples you gave. If you wanted to get a new job, you're potentially going to have to dust up your CV or resume or whatever you call it, depending on where you are in the world. We have a global audience. I love it. Sometimes when I give a Australianism and people are like, a what? But if you want to get a new job, your resume, your CV, you're going to need to dust that out. You're going to need to go on to Seek or some sort of search function, or go to a like a place that hires for you, like whatever they're called. I'm thinking a recruitment agency.
Yeah.
If you're on LinkedIn, maybe change your status to looking. And then also too, because we're talking about self-doubt, let's go for this example, because we haven't spoke to this before on the show. So your first thing that would come in my mind is, like, if I change my status on LinkedIn to looking or available, is my current job going to then, like, the self-doubt there might be like, I'm going to get fired, or I'm going to be let go, or, you know, this sort of thing. Also, who are you going to ask to be your referee or your referral, or whatever you call it, depending on where you live? Because you might not want to risk somebody in your current job, because if it doesn't work out, you don't want to end up high and dry. But you might have been there for quite some time, so you don't want to list someone from 10 years ago, because they're like, what's their relevancy? I think this is a great example. Have you worked with anyone through this particular scenario, Chantel?
Yes, I have, and yes, that's a great point. And again, the reference is the what do you want to achieve, and it's the risk, the proportionality of the risk versus the benefit of the gain. So how much do you want that new job? Because if you really want that new job, then risk it all. You know, yes, your boss might find out. Yes, people want, but you know what? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because if you stay committed, you know, it's always this, isn't it? Commitment and consistency. If you stay committed to your goal, you will achieve it. And you're not going to find, there's not, a job isn't going to land on your doorstep just because you want it. You're going to have to take some steps to do that. And it's just the same as, you know, even if you apply for jobs, you never know who might know somebody who works with you, who then will, and it will be found out in the end. So you just have to take some risks. And I think, again, the motivation is I love talking about motivation, because it's, you know, it goes with the goals, and it goes with, motivation is what pulls you. So if your motivation is high enough, then that will pull you to take the risks that you want, and that will kind of almost silence, to use that term, the self-doubt. So all of these things that you worry about, they will be calmed down by the benefit of what you're going to get. And also, it's, you know, it's exciting. That's again the way to look at it. Excitement and anxiety are kind of very similar feelings. In fact, they're kind of the same, just different thoughts that go with it. So you can
I've heard like fear is just excitement without the breath. Like, if you just take a breath, you know. But I love this example. It's unlikely, it's not impossible, but it's unlikely a job's just going to fall on your lap. It's like, say, in order to win the lottery, you need to have bought a ticket. You need to have some sort of buy-in. So, you know, whether it's something as small as having your LinkedIn profile, I personally don't use LinkedIn, but my husband does. And I know there's different statuses. Like on Facebook, you used to be able to have married, single, it's complicated. I don't know. I haven't looked at that in a while. But I know on LinkedIn, you can have, you know, actively looking or open. and he has the open one, and he just leaves that wherever he works. And sometimes, you know, some amazing opportunities come in, and sometimes it's just HR people getting their quota up of people they have to approach. But it's funny because he has that as his status now. When people do call him, his very first question is, how much does it pay? And it's surprising to them. And he's like, but you don't understand. I love where I work. I'm always open, but I don't want to engage or waste either of our times if you're going to come and offer me less than what I'm currently getting. So this is not your usual standard point, but if you want to talk to me, how much is it going to be? And I always find that really interesting, because if you have your standards for things, like talk about self-confidence to be able to lead with the money, which most people don't have. But in saying that, back to your point, you know, what is your goal so you can keep that? What are you willing to risk or invest, or how much are you going to put yourself out there? Because simply changing your LinkedIn status to available may not be enough, depending on your years of experience, how rare your skill set is, what it is that you actually do. Because then there's a whole other thing about, if you're in business, cold pitching, like, you know, and you go and say, hey, like this podcast, most people listen. I'm starting to put it onto YouTube and I'm trying to grow that, but not many people do. So the number of cold pitches I get every week saying your YouTube's not great, like, yeah, I know that. But if you actually spend some time and send something rather than going, dear sir, madam. So all of this to say, back to your points. Firstly, be clear on the goal, which sounds so simple, but many of us aren't. It's like, oh, it'd be nice. But like, no, what is it? How much do you want to be paid? Where do you want to live? How many hours do you want to work? Like, be really clear on that. And then your second point was, you know, like, have some opportunities so people can actually find out that, not just sitting at home hoping that somebody's going to knock on the door and go, here's your dream job. What would the next step be?
So the next step, and before I say that, this phrase comes to mind, which is, if you don't try, you don't get. Ultimately, if you don't try, you don't get. But yeah, the next point, I think, is to really, really understand that no one cares, because the main thing is throughout self-doubt, the big thing about self-doubt, right, is, oh, if I do this, what are people going to think about? What are people going to think? And I hear this all the time. I experience it, of course. It's things like, I help a lot of people through things like presentation anxiety and things like that. And it's always, I worry that I'm going to start mumbling, or I'm going to forget about what I'm going to say, or I'm going to, and then what? And then it's like, so if that happened, then what? Well, then people might think this, and so the one thing that actually really helped me is no one cares. So people in that room that will listen to your presentation, or people that you'll meet dating, or people that will listen to your podcast or YouTube or whatever, these people care about their rent, their mortgage, their family, whether the dog needs to go to the vet, whether the kid is going to make it to school after being sick, all of these kind of stuff. That's what they care about. They don't care what you do, or what, and even if they see you nervous, it will just be a passing thought that will then go away, and that's it. And no one cares. So I think really, really getting that helps to kind of divert that worry about what people might think. So that's, I think, the next.
Stand out. That's the best advice anyone's ever given on this show. Like, if I had the cheer function, I don't do editing, but I'd have like a round of applause and whatever. Nobody cares. Like, it is so true. If you go to watch any sort of singer, dancer, comedian, or whatever, if they fumble fuck, if they stuff up, and they pick themselves up, what you usually remember is like, well done, that person. But the fact that they stuttered here or there, or they missed a thing, nobody cares, because somebody could be so polished and so practiced, but you don't feel connected to them. You're just like, oh, this is the same shit that they pedal out every single time. So yeah, I think the biggest piece of advice there, nobody cares.
Yes.
And the more you are, your unique, your idiosyncrasies, your weirdness, that you're like, oh, I can't let people see that, it's usually what people remember. They're like, oh my gosh, there's the chick who led with, whatever it is. Whereas when you're trying to be like vanilla and sound like everyone else, then nobody hears you.
Yes. And you know what, Suzanne, actually, that reminded me, I've just seen the other day somewhere that Monica Lewinsky is basically pretty much made a career out of what happened, and she does speaking events, and she does all sorts of things. And you think, wow, she didn't crawl into a rabbit hole forever in her life, and what a thing to be famous for, right? But she kind of owned it, and it's like, well, there you go. And actually, no one cares. Oh yeah, she's the one who did this. Okay, you don't really go, oh my god, like that's it. It just happened, and people move on, and people don't
Yeah.
care.
People don't care. I love that. So we're at
Mm.
time already. It's been fabulous, Chantel. Can you let the listeners know what you do and where they can find you?
Yes, so I'm a confidence coach, and I help with all things to do with confidence, building it, getting away from self-doubt, and really boosting the confidence. You can find me on my website, www.chanteldempsey.com. And I've got all sorts of free gifts there, like guided meditations and clarity book, workbook, and things like that. And if you have any questions, I love questions.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you everyone for listening. Takeaway from me, I don't know about for anyone else, but nobody cares. That's just so freeing. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now.